All right, Monday Fun Day. Welcome in. Two games on the slate here today, and then you got a whole lot of extra games, which makes for a really exciting card, especially if you're Patriot League fans or MEAC or Southland fans. The bottom line is nobody cares as long as there's angles and a way to be able to bet on them and cash a few tickets, which is exactly what we're going to be looking to do here. We're going to have to dig deep, but we've got the crew to do that here on a Monday as we welcome in BP in the house, Brian Power ready to roll, as is Drew Martin and Mr. Rob Vino ready to roll on this 15-game slate here tonight, guys. A little something for everyone, including the ability to take 25% off as much as you want. We'll have some details on that and how you can fill your cart in just a minute at WagerTalk.com. But let's take a look back like we do on Monday here, gentlemen. Lot of college hoops, a lot of storylines on Saturday and 153 games. So there's always something that we're able to pull out here. And we're going to ask BP to kick us off and tell us exactly what was it you came away with learning in college hoops here over the weekend.
Yeah, I guess, Joe, what I learned is maybe you can't always catch a falling knife. Pretty dangerous to try to even do it once. But I tried with Missouri on Saturday. I thought it was a great spot for them to get on track at South Carolina in a revenge spot, and they didn't. Their offense is just really bad, Missouri. And there were some other games too that I'm glad I laid off over the weekend. So it could have actually been worse. Where I was like, this looks like the bottom of the market on this team, and sure enough, it wasn't. So I think, as some good advice would be, be careful about betting on teams that are just in poor form, because you never know exactly when the bottom is. We can try to guess it, but you're not always right. And we shall see moving forward. We're going to be selling on some teams that I think are at the peak of the market later on here, Joe, in the show. I'll talk about that. But be wary of teams that are in poor form. That is what I learned.
Yeah, and be wary when trying to bet against UConn, apparently.
Yes.
They don't take kindly to it. Yes, they do not take kindly to being bet against here. It's an interesting thing, too, because a lot of these conferences here, BP, it used to be like, hey, home court. Yeah, don't mean squat anymore here in a lot of these spots here, because even some of those teams where it's a falling knife, you think they're at home, they should be all right. They should be. No. Suck is suck, apparently, here, BP. And if you suck, it doesn't matter if you're home or you're away, you're not covering any games here.
Yeah, I would concur with that. There are certain conferences. It's interesting. If you look at the Big Ten, I know everyone's kind of gravitated toward that. I talked about this with Kelly on the pregame show last week, where home court seemingly has been really strong in that league. And it seemed that home court was strong for, a while everywhere. I think a couple of weeks ago on the show, Joe, I talked about what I learned is road teams weren't that good. But no, I agree. I mean, I lost a home team on Saturday as well with Boise, one of my favorite angles, unranked home team, laying points against the top 25 team. It didn't pan out. So everything you got to look at case by case basis. So you just can't bet these things blindly, obviously.
Yeah, no, absolutely crazy. And boy, Kansas, what happened? Don't like going on the road anymore, do you? Drew Martin, what is going on here, my man? It was a crazy weekend, certainly in college hoops here. Try to figure out which Arizona team shows up. I have no idea. Which Auburn team, which Baylor team. Go figure here, Drew. It's the joys of college hoops, man. What did you pull away this weekend?
Sure, Joe. I mean, a lot going on, betting wise. I had a rough week last week, Joe. So kind of looking to put it in the right direction here. Couldn't be happier to start a new week on Monday. I'll tell you. One thing I took away from the last couple of days is heading to the MAC with an extra A in there, the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, the MAC, if you will, is I've been fading the Manhattan Jaspers. They lost 10 straight games. They lost 12 of their last 13. But just yesterday, they found a way to win. So it's been a great run, making some money, fading Manhattan. It's just a team I watched. And I'm like, man, this team is hot garbage. But they're playing a little bit better. And the fact is, guys, it's about betting numbers. And just yesterday they were catching 9 and they won outright. So sometimes when you're kind of betting these trends and riding a money maker, and then there's an outlier like that, you kind of got to watch it and maybe say, all right, maybe just take the profits here. Don't try to jump on them again. So that's one thing I would take away. And the last game that they lost was against Canisius, and one of their best players, CM, came back. So Canisius in the same conference, I have them circled as bet on going forward. So college basketball wise, that's I guess 2 things I took away from the weekend, not to mention in the NFL. How in the heck does Lamar Jackson only have 8 carries, 2 wins away from hoisting the Super Bowl trophy, and he only runs the ball 8 times? Head scratching there, Joe. That was a tough loss on his rushing yards prop to the over.
Well, I guess it worked in Georgia. Apparently that's the same thing. Let's talk here, Rob, if we can here. They got to figure out the whole OC thing here in a couple of spots next year, because it's just not working out for some of those teams, man. Rob Vino, what are you thinking, my man? Crazy weekend here in college hoops. Was there a game or two that you had a little something to take away from?
Well, Joe, I think we were talking a little bit off air. The SEC, a couple of teams that are in the upper echelon that had come off weak losses, midweek losses, I should say, and you think they're going to bounce back against lesser opponents over the weekend, and they don't cover. I mean, Kentucky was life or death with Arkansas, which hadn't shown a bit of life for quite some time, and they were coming in off a loss, couldn't get the job done. Auburn loses at Alabama, goes to Mississippi State, small favorite, can't get the job done, lose outright. And then in that same breath, like you said before, Arizona goes into Oregon off of a loss, and they do bounce back, and they do show some pride against an Oregon team that you and I have discussed we think is going to be pretty good down the stretch here. I'll say one last thing where Mountain West Conference is concerned. I think a lot of people thought Utah State might fade away. They're not fading away. Danny Sprinkle, the ex-Montana State coach, walks in their first year, and he's playing more tempo. He's got more offense than they used to have at Montana State, and they just keep winning. But even bigger than that, having watched New Mexico a lot over the last 2 weeks, the team's a handful. They're an absolute handful because New Mexico now plays defense. And they're all over the place. Last night against Nevada, they absolutely smothered them. They haven't won a Mountain West game this season by less than 13 points. Got a couple of road losses. They might have to clean that up. But come tournament time, and New Mexico is going to be a beast. All that offense, and now Richard Pitino has them playing some defense. It's a scary thought down there in Albuquerque.
It's a very scary situation. There's a few teams like that over the next couple of weeks. We can certainly keep an eye on that seem to be putting it together at the right time and just won't go away no matter how much we want them to. But we do have a few games coming up here today. Obviously, we've got a couple of games up at the top of the board there. We'll get to those. But we're going to start with a game tomorrow, BP, because I don't know. I mean, Texas Tech at TCU. TCU with a 27 overtime game win. Just most unbelievable game you will see all weekend there against Baylor. Just absolutely would not go away. Texas Tech, though, like them at home. You wonder about them on the road. But like we said, does it really make a damn bit of difference here? What are we doing with Tech TCU tomorrow?
Well, Joe, this is going to be yet another instance of an unranked home team laying points to a top 25 team. So just to bring everyone up to speed, while in the interest of full disclosure, I did have Boise and was wrong against Utah State. I would co-sign with what Rob said about Utah State. Maybe they're just not going to regress this year. Of course, that game went to overtime. But that result aside, if you've been laying it with unranked home favorites, you're not just hitting 67% this season. You're hitting 67% over the last 2 seasons. True to form, 8-4 ATS the last 12 and 2-1 last week. I did have both winners midweek, where it was Alabama just barely covering against Auburn, and then you had Nevada beating Colorado State. So you look at this particular instance, and I believe, Joe, it is time to sell high on Texas Tech. The Red Raiders currently lead the Big 12 with a 5-1 straight-up conference record. I don't think a lot of us saw that coming. I got to be honest with you. I don't think Texas Tech is a top 5 team in the Big 12, and Ken Palm backs me up on that. So makes me feel a little bit better with the hot take there. And we should give credit to Tech. They win at Oklahoma. We talk about winning it on the road. Can you do it? Well, okay, they did win on the road over the weekend against the Sooners, but it was a 1-point win, and OU just stunk it up from the foul line, and as a result, blew the 9-point second half lead. So Texas Tech, I think you could say maybe a little bit lucky to win in Norman. And 2 of Texas Tech's last 3 wins have come by exactly 1 point. So that conference record, Joe, of 5-1, it could just as easily be 3-3. Now you look at TCU, this team, you referenced the Baylor game. They've obviously been living dangerously as well over the last week. Big come from behind win over Oklahoma State. They go 3 overtimes to beat Baylor. But I like what I saw from Jameer Nelson Jr. He had 30 in that game. Remember, this is a guy who scored 30 multiple times at Delaware before transferring over. This will end up as a sweat. There is no doubt about it. But I like TCU, who's 9-1 straight up at home, to get the job done. I think they were due the positive close game variance we saw last week, because you look at their last 3 conference losses. By 2 at Kansas, they led most of the way. Overtime at Cincinnati, they were covering almost the entire game. And by 1 at home to Iowa State. So their only home loss this year was by a single point. And Iowa State's really good. Iowa State's better team than Texas Tech, in my opinion. As we're recording, lines have just come out. Odds makers, Joe, they're aware of this trend with the unranked home favorites because they've installed TCU -5. I am really interested to see what the market does here, but it would be favorite or pass for me on the Horned Frogs. I think that is a deserved number. TCU is the better team, no matter what the AP and coaches polls say in the next little bit.
All right, good stuff there. Should be a good one. A lot of really great matchups coming up this week, but we have an interesting one here tonight. Top 25 action here. Drew, we get, though, the ranked favorite on the road going to Austin to take on Texas. Houston at Texas. Interesting matchup. I can't figure out what's going on with Texas. I thought they'd be better than what they are, but maybe just handing the game to Rodney Terry maybe wasn't the greatest of ideas for Texas, but they get an opportunity to knock off Houston. Can they tonight, Drew, get it done?
Sure, Joe. I mean, it's still early in the Rodney Terry administration, so we'll see how it goes here in Austin. Tough game for the Longhorns, and you kind of talked about it. A little bit of a rough start, and it's been rough recently. I mean, they're just 1-4 against the spread their last 5, and actually they're 6-14 ATS on the season. So talk about overpriced. I mean, 6 wins and 14 losses. 20 games on the year, and you've been burning cash. That's something to just kind of notice here, guys. When you get a big brand like Texas and they are burning cash like that, watch out betting the Longhorns. It's an interesting number here, -5 right there in, Foul Fest territory, but I don't think it's large enough. I think Houston's the side here. I mean, it's a primetime game, 9 p.m., nationally televised. And Houston, one of the best teams in the country, in my opinion, Joe. They've won 2 straight, both straight up and against the spread. And if you want to kind of dig into what Houston maybe going against them, they did lose their first 2 road games in conference. Kelvin Sampson, there were some question marks there, but they've since, and I bring that up because it's Big 12 and it's their first year in the Big 12. One thing that I had circled betting wise is the new teams, UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, BYU, when they go on the road to these new venues, and there's a lot of travel in the Big 12, it's spread out, maybe looking to fade them. And they lost their first 2 games in conference, but they righted the ship last time out in one of the most difficult places to play in the whole country at BYU. They won by 7. It's the same spot Texas just lost by 12. So we get a common opponent here with a big spread in between, and it's pointing towards Houston as the better team. They've been the better team to bet on all season long. And we talk about the Moody Center going on the road here in Austin. Both UCF and Texas Tech went in here to the Moody Center and won outright. I think Houston does it again. I think they win by margin here, Joe. Bet the Cougars tonight against Texas.
Feels like it's a tough train to get in front of at this point, though. We'll have a best bet coming up in that game. I know Rob Vino has got a few thoughts in that one. but he does have a game breakdown for us. And you got to go deep here, Rob, on his card. And you certainly did with North Carolina Central taking on Delaware State, which I believe this line flipped this morning, if I'm not mistaken. Seems to have been getting more action. I'm sure the public wasn't waking up and betting North Carolina Central to Delaware State, which is interesting. But where are you looking at here total-wise in this game here today on the, I believe, right around the 7 o'clock time frame?
Yeah, I think it's a ESPN game, Joe, which on one of their many platforms where that's probably what creates interest. Give them two real games in the high major and then give them one low major and put it on television here in the MEAC. But where this game's concerned, I was a little confused by the move in this total. 133 opener, all the way up to 135.5 right now.
Mm.
These are the two best defenses in the MEAC this season through the first 4 games. Delaware State's number 1 in overall defensive efficiency, and NC Central is number 1 in effective field goal percentage allowed. How about this number? 41.1% effective field goal percentage allowed. Central, for what it's worth, a lot of that number comes from their 3-point defense. Their 3-point defense been absolutely crazy, only allowing 16.7% from 3-point range. Their last 8 opponents, let's just go beyond league play. Their last 8 opponents overall haven't shot any better than 22.2 from beyond the arc. So you could almost erase 3-point shooting from Delaware State tonight, unless, it's one of those nights where you can throw it in the ocean from wherever you are. But the 22.2%, the high number, is interesting because that was done by the best 3-point shooting team in the MEAC, South Carolina State. So if their best can only get to 22.2, I don't think Delaware State shoots real good from 3 here tonight. For their defensive accolades here, this is the number 1 team, Delaware State, forcing turnovers, defensive rebounds. You don't get second chance points with this team. And they send opponents to the free throw line the least in the league. So 3 great categories there to put them number 1 in overall defensive efficiency. Delaware State's a funny team when you look at their numbers, Joe, because they play high possession games, 70s, 70s, 70s with their possessions. However, they take their time to shoot the basketball. It's a methodical offense. They shoot the ball 17.7 seconds, every shot 17.0 seconds, which is 223rd in the country. Slow, methodical, and it's not like they're overly efficient because it's not an efficient offense. They just don't shoot it up real fast. The reason why they're a high possession team is because other teams can't wait to shoot the ball against them. And I guess maybe you don't want them to set up their half court D because they're so good, as I just mentioned, in league play on defense. But their opponents have the 54th fastest shot attempt rate in the nation. So that's what's causing these possessions to be high, not necessarily because Delaware State wants to go up and down. They're going to take that methodical offense and run it into a defense that just digs in the trenches in half court. They force teams to hang on to the basketball at the 317th highest seconds per shot rate. So you got a team that doesn't shoot often. They take their time. You got a team that doesn't allow opponents to shoot. It just doesn't add up to points or possessions in this particular game. I think if you take a look at NC Central, they're slow paced as well, and they just don't shoot the basketball. They have the second worst 2-point percentage shooting team in the MEAC. So again, you're rattling through these numbers of elite, as far as league play is concerned, defensive teams against mid-pack to low-level offensive teams, and yet the total's getting cranked up from 33 to 35.5. Could be people love to bet what's on TV. Could be some syndicate thinks they have an in on this game. I'm not sure. Even though I'm close in the area here, we don't get a heck of a lot of Delaware State coverage. Delaware Blue Hens, yes. Delaware State Hornets, not so much. But it is a game between 2 teams that are in a 3-way tie for first. So you would expect the defensive intensity to increase here. It just, you're asking these teams to get to 68 each. And I don't know how that happens. So I use this as a free play on my homepage. NC Central at Delaware State tonight, under 135.5.
Yeah, we saw NC Central open up as the favorite overnight, and now Delaware State is flipped to the favorite in a lot of spots, and the total continues to get bet up for some reason there, Vino. It's one of those games here tonight, 7:30, in fact, will be the tip-off Eastern time there. So we've got a couple of big game breakdowns under our belt. We're going to have 3 best bets coming your way here in just a second. A quick reminder, today is Fill Your Cart Day. Take 25% off anything that you drop in your cart right now. Just use that promo code CART25. So that means you can throw in the cart any one of the packages from Brian Power, Drew Martin, Rob Vino, all 3 of them. Throw it in the cart, get 25% off today using that code CART25. It's only good for today. So if you are just getting around now to taking a look and concentrating on college hoops, these are 3 of the best at WagerTalk. So hop on board, partner up with them now, and use that code CART25 at checkout. All right, let's do this here, guys. Best bet time. And we'll kick it back to the top here with another absolute beauty from Brian Power here, who could not wait to talk about Houston Christian in this spot here. Houston Christian versus Southeast Louisiana, a game that a lot of people have been circling on the calendar if they knew where to find it. So what are you doing in this game for a best bet here tonight, BP?
Well, Joe, if it's Monday, I know that it's one of your favorite times of the week. Old BP's weekly check on the Southland Conference. And as we know, McNeese from previous weeks when I've talked about it, clearly the class of this league. The gap between them and number 2 is massive, bigger than the gap between any 1 and 2 in any conference in America. But the other thing you need to know about the Southland and what we're going to talk about here today is virtually every other team in this league is just horrific on the road. You take out McNeese, you take out Nichols, you take out Texas A&M Corpus Christi, okay? Those are probably the 3 best teams in the Southland. The other 7 are a combined 10-62 straight up on the road. One of those teams just happens to be Southeast Louisiana, and guess what? They're on the road tonight, and they are laying points. They have not been a road favorite all year, has Southeast Louisiana. As a matter of fact, over the previous 3 seasons, there have been just 2 occasions where they were a road favorite of 3.5 to 6 points. Guess what they didn't do either time, Joe? Cover. So I do not know why anyone would want to lay points with Southeast Louisiana on the road here. I'm not going to tell you that Houston Christian's a good team. They're not a good team, but they are 10-5 against the number as a dog this year. 5-0 against the number at home, getting points tonight. Better offensive team, better rebounding team. Give me the Houston Christian Huskies plus the points at home. Market agrees with me, Joe. I guess you could say I am siding with the Christians over the Lions in this one. Best bet for the show today, Houston Christian plus 3.5.
A lot to unpack there. I'm not even going to attempt other than I know Rob Vino is looking at the over in that game and seeing that it continues to get bet up to nobody's surprise. All right. Drew Martin, here we go. Now that we had to wake you up after that rundown there from BP, which was ecstatic. You are going to actually bring us back down to an interesting game in the ACC with Va Tech at home taking on Duke. A lot of controversy of this Duke team over a couple days ago against Clemson. Maybe a little home cook in there with the refs, which how that surprises anybody is beyond me, but it certainly seemed to surprise the Clemson coach. But now a little hostile environment on a team that a lot of people think has got a pretty good shot at tournament time here as they keep getting better. Are you a believer in Va Tech, or do you think Duke handles business here?
Sure, Joe. I am a believer in the Hokies, and I'll tell you, you're set up to BP. That was first class, man. Saying Houston, little pause, and then adding Christian at the end. I thought that was funny, Joe. So props to you on that. We got prime time tonight, guys. ACC matchup: Virginia Tech hosting Duke. Look, we got them 3.5. Some side note here, guys. I usually go in and I put up a free play in the overnights. I also put out my client card, a lot of it anyway, the night before. College basketball, particularly this time of year, like before March. I think it's very important to bet the overnights because these numbers move. It's now 3 across the board. So if it does land 3, just something to check there. If you want to check out Drew Martin, WagerTalk.com, in the overnights, it's usually up there. And this is the one. It's Virginia Tech plus 3.5, now plus 3. I still like it at the 3 number. This is ESPN game, arguably the biggest game of the night. And Duke, look, a sparkling record. What are they? 15-4 on the season, ranked just outside of the top 10, getting home cooking like Joe just talked about against Clemson. However, more importantly here, guys, they're under 500 betting on them, meaning they've been overpriced so far this season, and they have not beaten a top 70 team on the road. College basketball, big home road. At least I have it as a big home road kind of part of my handicap. And going into Virginia Tech, who's 10-1 in Castle Coliseum, this is a tough kind of spot here for Duke, and this would be a big win for the Hokies. They did beat Iowa State earlier in the season. If they're able to knock off Duke tonight, it should be a rowdy atmosphere here, Joe. Primetime game, nationally televised. I think the home dog is barking. Sprinkle some on the plus 140 money line as well. Give me the Hokies over the Blue Devils.
Ooh, liking the Hokies to get it done here. Mike Young, actually a pretty damn good coach. Nobody talks about there in the ACC with Vatek tonight. Getting it going. That leaves us, of course, one best bet here. And we're going to head back to that other big matchup here tonight with Houston and Rob Vino. And what are you thinking? We heard Drew break it down from a side perspective. UT taking on UH here. What do you think about the total in this game, Vino?
Yeah, I mean, leave it to me to bet over in a game that features the nation's number one ranked defense, right, Joe? I mean, that's just what we're all about here. But I'm going to do it, and I'm going to tell you why. And maybe I cash. I think I will. I came across an interesting point this morning, trying to do some reading and research for this game, and it involved Houston. And Drew alluded to it before when he said it's their first year in the Big 12, but these conference schedules are always staggered differently, right? Houston playing in the AAC the last few years, they were never required to play this Saturday to Monday, 1 day of rest deal. The AAC usually staggered their games with 2 days in between. Either you go Wednesday, Saturday, or you go Thursday, Sunday. So it's something that they're going to do for the first time here tonight. And it's something that could be worth watching down the road simply because of how hard Houston plays every day. Now, I know you could throw the example at me of, an NCAA tournament. They have to go with 1 day's rest. It's a different story than going through a grueling schedule inside a league like the Big 12. So I think that could wear a little bit on what's normally an enormous amount of defensive intensity. This game also being on the road. The one thing I did have to look up and check real quick is how many minutes Kelvin Sampson players were getting, because he's notorious for having a real short bench, which would make this even harder. Generally speaking, Houston the last few years, 6, 7 guys, that's it. The rest of you watch the game. This year, it's a little deeper. 8, 9 guys getting about 14 plus minutes. So maybe he anticipated this and was trying to build some depth, but still, it's a new occurrence for Houston. I'm not so sure that they can do what they did defensively against Kansas State on Saturday, come right back and do it again on a foreign court here on a Monday with only 1 day's rest. Now, for Texas, why would their defense be a little less intense here? Well, first of all, they're not really good. Second of all, they're coming home from Provo, and that's not an easy trip. You and I, of course, we were speaking with Adam Trigger the other day about the actual trip into Provo, which is a little bit more than just landing and getting to your hotel. So for Texas, this is tough to bounce back from, coming back home with only 1 day off. I could see their defense being a little less intense here. Texas has been shooting well as of late, just that their defense has been getting cooked. But if you look at Texas, they're 50% or better from the field in 3 of their last 4, but yet the defense has given up 48% or better in 3 of those last 4. This team scored 71 plus points in 6 straight games, but the defense has allowed 73 or more in 6 of the last 7. So you get the correlation here to playing over. Good offense, bad defense. The Houston side maybe not having the same intensity over 40 minutes. Houston in the Big 12, their games have gone over this number. Again, I think Drew used this line. Remember, we're betting numbers. This number is low, right? 130.5. Houston's managed to get over this total 4 of 7 games. So number 1 ranked defense in the nation or not, they could still find ways over this number. The games that didn't were against UCF, worst offense in the Big 12. KSU, Kansas State, the 10th worst offense in the Big 12. Iowa State, the ninth worst offense in the Big 12. So, they've done it. They've played unders against really poor offenses. This is not one of them. I think the situation plus the matchup should be able to get over this low total of 130. Again, Texas is not only one of the worst Big 12 defenses, they are actually the worst in effective field goal percentage allowed, giving up almost 57% shooting effective field goal percentage wise. Houston themselves, not known for scoring, but hey, they've gotten to 67 or better points in 4 times already this season in Big 12 play. And they've done that, Joe, gotten to 67 or better by shooting 42% or less. They don't even need to shoot good to get to 67. And Texas allows you to shoot good. Houston can make threes. Texas doesn't defend at three. Texas plays with a little tempo. I think you start adding all these components up, and 130.5 just looks too little to me. So I'm going to play it that way. Houston at Texas over 130.5.
He ain't scared. There you go. Over 130.5 there with with Houston taking on Texas here. And that very well could be light them up from outside kind of game there, Vino. So not as crazy as some might think here. But we do have a recap for those of you just entirely too lazy on a Monday to actually listen to what the breakdowns were. And here we go. Drew going Vatek for a best bet, people. 3.5. Take it down to 3 now. So hurry up against Duke at home. We've got Houston Christian. I know you guys, you have been writing in asking if we can get more Houston Christian breakdowns. Well, voila, you got it. 3.5 here tonight is where BP is showing up for you. And Rob Vino just going, hell with your unders. Houston, Texas over 130.5 here tonight. Expect to cash that ticket and expect to get 25% off of your cart right now, guys. If you head over to WagerTalk.com, it's simple. Just add any one of the, the all-access passes there, 3-day, 7-day, 30-day all-access packages there, full year subscriptions, not just one, but you can go to BP, you can add Drew Martin, you can add Rob Vino, all 3 of these guys, in fact. Throw it in your cart, and you get 25% off that entire cart using the promo code. Are you sitting down? Cart 25. You like how that works? Even Brian Power can figure that out. Cart 25, guys, use it. Take advantage of it. And what is this? Are you miming? What is going on? Never mind. We're out of here. Guys, we appreciate the time. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Come back and join us again tomorrow as a loaded slate in college hoops is upon us. Best of luck with your plays. We'll talk.